In the annals of biblical prophecy, few voices resound with the power and poetry of Isaiah. A man who saw God in the temple and was undone, Isaiah spoke words that shook kings and comforted captives. He warned of judgment and painted the most beautiful portrait of the coming Messiah. In this video, we'll journey through Isaiah's landscape, his scathing indictments, his visions of God, and the prophetic promises that still change lives today. Isaiah, Judgment, Hope, Messiah Part 1. What is Isaiah? Author and historical context. Traditionally, the book of Isaiah is attributed to Isaiah son of Amoz, a prophet who prophesied in Judah during the reigns of Kings Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah in the 8th century before Christ. He spoke during a violent age. Assyria was expanding, nations trembled, and Jerusalem faced danger. That historical pressure shaped Isaiah's message urgent, sometimes terrifying, but always rooted in the holiness of God. A modern scholarly note: while tradition treats Isaiah as a single work by one prophet, many scholars identify distinct sections. First Isaiah chapters 1 to 39 focused on judgment under Assyria, and later sections chapters 40 to 66 often read as comfort for exiles returning from Babylon. Whichever view you adopt, the book's theological center, God's holiness, judgment, restoration, and the promise of a servant Messiah, shines through. Part 2. The Vision of God and Isaiah's Call. Isaiah 6. Isaiah's prophetic life begins with a vision no sermon can lightly pass by. In Isaiah 6 to 1 to 4, we read, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. And the train of his robe filled the temple. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." That image formed Isaiah's theology. He saw God's absolute otherness, not simply a moral teacher, but a consuming, majestic, world-forming holiness. In that encounter, Isaiah is broken. "Woe is me," he says. The prophet's confession is met by atonement. A seraphim touches his lips, and God commissions him anyway. Notice the pattern. Encounter gives conviction, gives cleansing, gives commission. Isaiah's message is never abstract. It comes from a surrendered, repentant life. Every serious voice for God begins with worship. Our boldest words about justice, mercy, or truth must first be words shaped by it. Part 3. The Indictment, Social Sin and Religious Hypocrisy. Isaiah 1:5. Isaiah's first major theme is condemnation of religious hypocrisy and social injustice. Isaiah 1 opens with a blistering indictment. The people are like Sodom despite their rituals. Listen to his blunt plea in Isaiah 1:17, "Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression. Bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause." This is not a side note, it's foundational. He condemns external religiosity, sacrifices and festivals when they are used to hide cruelty. He says loud worship cannot excuse broken lives. This part of Isaiah still hits us in the 21st century. Churches that ignore the poor, institutions that manufacture consent, leaders who celebrate power while people suffer. Isaiah calls each of these to account. If your faith doesn't change how you treat the vulnerable, Isaiah calls you back to the real work. Justice isn't optional, it's worship. Part 4. Judgment on nations and the sovereignty of God. Isaiah 13 to 23. Isaiah interprets world events as God's acts. He announces judgment not only on Israel, but on the nations Babylon, Assyria, Philistia, Moab, and others. At first glance that sounds harsh, but the deeper point: God is the Lord of history. Nations rise and fall not by accident, but within God's sovereign plan. This sovereignty comforts the powerless and warns the proud. When Isaiah prophesies Babylon's rise, it is partly a judgment on Judah's failure. And when he prophesies Babylon's fall, it's a reminder that every empire is accountable. Isaiah roots geopolitics in divine ethics. In a world awash with uncertainty, shifting alliances, economic collapse, natural disaster, the biblical message is not that politics doesn't matter, but that God matters more. If God rules, we live under a higher court than any nation. Part 5. The Messianic Promise, Prophecies of the Coming King. Isaiah 7, 9, 11. Isaiah's greatest gift to the world is his messianic vision. In contexts of national panic, he points forward to a child who will change everything. Isaiah 7:14 famously promises, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, The virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. That name, God with us, is the heartbeat of Isaiah's hope. Isaiah 9:6-7 continues, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Prophecy like this tied the nation's present crisis to a future reality that reorders power, not with the sword, but with righteousness and peace. A careful note: scholars debate meanings. The Hebrew Alma in Isaiah 7:14 has been discussed for centuries. The New Testament Matthew 1:23 reads this as a messianic fulfillment in Jesus. Christians see in Isaiah both immediate signs for his day and fuller fulfillment in Christ. When the world feels ruled by fear and force, Isaiah's answer is a different kind of rule: justice, humility, and shalom. This recalibrates how Christians think about leadership, power, and peace. Part 6. The Servant Songs and the Suffering Servant. Isaiah 42, 49, 50, 52-53. One of Isaiah's most arresting contributions is the servant material, what Christians call the servant songs. These passages describe a figure who serves, suffers, bears injustice, and brings healing. Isaiah 53:4-6 captures this. "Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities, and by his wounds we are healed." These words read like a portrait of vicarious suffering. For the Christian reading, Isaiah 53 is a prophecy of Jesus, the innocent one suffering on behalf of others, bearing sins so others may be forgiven. Isaiah's audience would have known suffering, but the poem turns that suffering into atonement language that stands as one of Scripture's most powerful statements about substitution and redemption. If you are carrying guilt, grief, or shame, Isaiah points to a profound truth. Ultimate healing is found in a suffering love that chooses the burden for you. The latter half of Isaiah, often read as a voice to the exiles, begins with a new tone: comfort. Isaiah 40:1 opens, "Comfort, comfort my people, says your God." The images here change. Where earlier there was thunder, now there is tenderness. The prophet declares God's greatness over the nations, he who sits above the circle of the earth. Isaiah 40:22. And then a verse many of us memorize, Isaiah 40:31, "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." It's a promise of restoration. If first Isaiah is courtroom drama, second Isaiah is a letter of consolation, God's promise to rebuild and to restore. When the scaffolding of your life collapses, Isaianic comfort is loud and practical. God rebuilds. For exiles, for refugees, for anyone displaced by life's storms, the voice is the same: comfort, prepare, hope. Part 7. New Creation and Cosmic Hope. Isaiah 65-66. Isaiah ends with a cosmic vision, not mere political restoration, but the renewal of heaven and earth. Isaiah 65:17 declares, "For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered." This is the horizon of hope. God is not merely repairing the past, God creates radical newness. In a culture obsessed with novelty and yet marked by despair, Isaiah's promise of new creation offers the deepest optimism. The future will be more than improved, it will be made new by God. Part 8. Isaiah's Ethics, How to Live After Hearing God. Isaiah's vision always circles back to ethics. God's holiness produces justice. In Isaiah 58, the prophet rejects hollow fasting and prescribes true fasting. "Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke. To share your bread with the hungry." Isaiah 58:6-7 paraphrase. Spirituality without action is hollow, worship without mercy is empty. So after hearing Isaiah we act, feed the hungry, defend the vulnerable, level mountains of oppression. Isaiah demands our hands as much as our prayers. Part 9. Closing summary. Isaiah is thunder and whisper. He calls the proud to judgment and the humble to hope. He shows us God's holiness, God's justice, God's mercy, and ultimately, God's remedy in the servant who suffers and the king who comes. Read Isaiah with courage. You'll be chastened, baffled, amazed, and comforted. If this teaching helped you, comment below. I will wait on the Lord. Share it with someone who needs to hear this ancient, urgent message. Thank you for watching.